Supervisors play an important role in setting the tone for their workforce. As a supervisor, you not only make a difference in how employees treat one another, but also have a large influence on how appreciated your employees feel in the workplace. Supervisors are responsible for keeping people feeling safe and respected in the workplace by what is said and done around them. It is important to avoid making comments that undermine or disregard the safety rules and to exemplify the new procedures correctly. If employees hear a supervisor making negative comments about safety guidelines, or observe them not enforcing new protocols with all employees, it can undermine the importance of these rules and reduce employee willingness to follow the correct procedures. Familiarize yourself with the Frequently Asked Questions page of the NC State website to give your employees support with confidence. Some of the questions in this resource include: what changes are being made to the worksite to reduce the spread of COVID-19? Will everyone at the university be working their normal schedule? How can I inform university officials of any unsafe work conditions related to COVID-19? And my employee is high risk and concerned about coming back to work. Can I allow them to stay at home? Keep the following in mind as general guidance in your role as a supervisor. Encourage employees to come to you if they have any questions or concerns. Do not ask your employees to disclose any specific health-related information. Keep the information shared confidential, meaning you won't share any information with others without a specific need to. For example, if your employee shares that they will need to be on leave for an extended time for a medical reason, you may need to tell your next level supervisor that the employee will be out in order to make coverage arrangements. However, you should not announce this information in a meeting if the employee has not given you permission to share with other staff members. As employees return to work, it is likely that there will be an increase in requests for additional workplace flexibility from individuals who are concerned about their health and safety. Some of these requests for flexibility may be governed by the Americans with Disabilities Act, but not all of them will. Such requests may be analyzed and processed appropriately, either as requests for reasonable accommodations under the ADA or as requests for increased workplace flexibility in light of COVID-19. It is essential to remember that, while all reasonable accommodations granted under the ADA require a certain degree of workplace flexibility, not all requests for workplace flexibility are requests for reasonable accommodations under the ADA. COVID-19 in and of itself is a transitory illness and would generally not be a disability as defined by the ADA, except in very severe cases. Similarly, an underlying health condition or conditions that would identify a person as high risk is not necessarily a disability, although it could be in some cases. If a high-risk employee requests a change in their working conditions for fear of potentially contracting COVID-19, a threshold determination must be made as to whether the employee is actually disabled under the ADA. For example, if an employee had not previously sought an accommodation for an underlying health condition prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, has had no difficulty in performing the essential functions of his or her job prior to the pandemic, and if the employee's work duties or conditions have not changed in a manner that would interfere with the performance of his or her essential duties due to the underlying health condition, then that employee would likely not be considered disabled, and thus would be requesting workplace flexibility rather than an accommodation pursuant to the ADA. The distinction between these two types of requests will not always be easy to discern, and each case will have to be analyzed individually. It's recommended to collaborate with Human Resources and the Office for Institutional Equity and Diversity, or OIED, when processing these requests. If a request is determined to be for flexibility, the decision to grant the request may be made after considering several factors, including feasibility, business need, risk assessment, and the burden placed on other employees. As a supervisor, make sure any scheduling decisions or remote work options are made based on business necessity and are consistent for all similarly situated employees. Consult Human Resources for ways to address business need challenges. When scheduling employees to return to the worksite, openly promote and encourage social distancing practices as recommended by the CDC, and follow EHPS guidelines on face coverings in the office, classroom, and lab spaces. Remember that employees whose workspaces are in common areas must still be physically distanced, since the short cubicle walls do not create a sufficient barrier to reduce the spread of the disease. These practices may include, but should not be limited to, the following: giving employees the option to continue with the same or modified remote work schedule, as well as implementing new flexible work schedules to reduce the number of employees in a worksite. staggering work shifts or start times so that fewer employees are entering and exiting campus buildings, limiting the number of institutional visitors within selected facilities, and ensuring that only one person, or as few as possible, works on site each day if multiple employees perform the same or similar tasks. It's also valuable to practice active listening skills with your employees, such as listening to the employee without jumping to conclusions, including your employees in decision-making processes, waiting for appropriate times to ask clarifying questions, avoiding too much control over the conversation, giving the employee feedback, and observing non-verbal cues and paying attention to what is left unsaid. For more information about resources available to all employees, refer to the FASTAP resources page on the NC State website.